The council chamber was filled with worried voices. Representatives from 17 different alien species sat in their seats, arguing about what to do next. They had been talking for 3 weeks now, and things were only getting worse. High Chancellor Velnara stood up. She was a Velnar, tall and thin with blue skin that seemed to glow softly in the dim light. She raised her hand and the room became quiet. Everyone knew what she was about to say. They had all been thinking it, but nobody wanted to say it out loud. "We must contact the humans," she said. The room exploded with noise. Some delegates stood up from their seats. Others started shouting. Councillor Thexavan of the Karathi shook his head violently. "No, they are primitives. They have only been in space for 300 years. What can they possibly do that we cannot?" But Velnara did not sit down. She waited for the noise to die down, then she spoke again. "The Vakroth swarm has destroyed 12 civilizations. They are coming for our core worlds. Our fleets have failed. Our defenses have fallen. In 6 months, we will all be dead unless we do something different." In the diplomatic gallery above the main chamber, Ambassador Peter Grant listened carefully. He was human and he had been waiting for this moment. He pressed a button on his console and requested permission to speak. When it was granted, he stood up. "Honorable delegates," Peter said, his voice calm and steady. "I understand your concerns about my species. We are young compared to you. We still fight among ourselves sometimes. We build weapons when others build art. But we have been watching the Vakroth for 2 years now. We have been preparing. Earth's military is ready to help." "Your military?" Thexvan said with disgust. "Why do you even have a military?" "We achieved peace centuries ago. We built our civilizations on cooperation and understanding. But humans? You never stopped preparing for war." Peter nodded slowly. "You are right. We never stopped. And right now that is exactly what you need." The vote was close, but it passed. The Galactic Council would formally ask Earth for military help. The message was sent immediately. Commander Lisa Hayes was at Earth's military command when the transmission arrived. She read it once, then read it again to make sure she understood correctly. The Council was asking for help. They were actually asking for help. She forwarded the message to Admiral Karen Price with a single comment. They finally called. Admiral Price was in a meeting when the message reached her. She looked at it for only a moment before making her decision. "Mobilize the Third Fleet," she ordered. "Send a message to the Council. Tell them we are coming." Within hours, military bases across Earth came alive with activity. Ships that had been waiting in orbit began their final checks. Crews that had been training for years received their deployment orders. Supply ships loaded weapons and ammunition. Medical teams prepared for casualties. Lieutenant Jake Morris stood in the hangar bay of the ESS Valiant and watched the preparations. He was young, only 24 years old, but he had trained his entire adult life for this moment. He had heard the stories about the Vakroth, entire planets consumed, billions of people dead, civilizations that existed for thousands of years wiped out in months. "Nervous?" asked a voice behind him. Jake turned and saw Captain Ryan Bell, the commander of the Valiant. Bell was older, maybe 40, with gray hair at his temples and scars on his hands from years of service. "A little," Jake admitted. "I have never fought aliens before." Bell smiled, but it was not a happy smile. "Neither have any of us. But we have been training for it since we first learned we were not alone in the universe. Every war game, every simulation, every drill. It was all preparing us for this." "What if we are not good enough?" Jake asked. "Then a lot of people are going to die," Bell said honestly. "But I do not think that will happen." "You know why?" "Because we are humans. We are the species that crawled out of caves and decided to go to the stars. We are the species that looked at the worst predators on our planet and said, we can do better than that. We are survivors, Jake. It is what we do best." The Third Fleet departed 3 days later. 147 warships left Earth orbit, more military power than had ever been assembled in human history. They were heading to the Helios sector, where the Vakroth had trapped a group of Velnar colony ships. During the 4-day journey, the crew of the Valiant studied everything they could about the enemy. Dr. Helen Cross, the ship's xenobiologist, gave briefings on Vakroth biology and behavior. They were insectoid creatures, she explained, controlled by hive intelligence. Each Vakroth was part of a larger mind, connected to a queen somewhere far away. They did not negotiate. They did not retreat. They consumed everything in their path. They are like locusts, Helen explained, but intelligent locusts that can fly between stars. Sergeant Mike Torres listened to the briefing with his Marine platoon. They were tough men and women, trained for boarding actions and ground combat. Torres had fought in conflicts on Earth and on human colonies. He had seen combat before. But this was different. This was not humans fighting humans. This was humans fighting something completely alien. They are going to try to scare us, Torres told his platoon. They are going to come at us in swarms. They are going to make noise and show us their teeth. But remember this. Our ancestors hunted animals bigger and meaner than these bugs. We are predators too, and we are very, very good at it. The fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Helios sector. Captain Bell looked at the main view screen and felt his stomach tighten. The Vakroth had 73 hive ships surrounding the Velnar colony fleet. Each hive ship was enormous, the size of a small moon. They were dark and organic-looking, like giant insects floating in space. The Velnar Defense Force was still fighting, but barely. 19 ships, all damaged, all running low on power. They had been fighting for weeks, using every trick they knew to stay alive. But they were losing. Admiral Price opened a communication channel. This is Admiral Karen Price of the Earth Space Service to all Council vessels. We are here to help. Follow our commands and prepare for combat operations. The Velnar fleet commander responded, confusion clear in his voice. Admiral Price, we are sending you our defensive protocols. Our strategy is to maintain maximum shield strength while... Negative, Price interrupted. Your defensive strategy failed. That is why we are here. All ships prepare to attack. There was silence on the communication channel. Attack? The Velnar could not understand. No civilized species attacked. They defended. They protected. They retreated when necessary. But attack? The Vakroth hive ships began moving forward. They had detected the human fleet, but they were not worried. Every species they had encountered ran away or tried to defend. The soft shells always acted the same way. These new ones would be no different. They were very wrong. Admiral Price gave a single order that would change everything. All ships weapons-free. Show them what happens when you threaten our friends. The human fleet charged forward. The human warships split into 3 groups and accelerated toward the Vakroth hive ships. Captain Ryan Bell watched his tactical display and smiled. The enemy was confused. Their formation was breaking apart, trying to figure out what the humans were doing. All weapons fire when ready, Bell ordered. The Valiant opened fire first. Railguns launched metal projectiles at incredible speeds. Missiles streaked through space, their engines burning bright. Plasma cannons heated the void with blue-white energy. The other human ships followed, and suddenly space was filled with weapons fire. The first Vakroth hive ship exploded. The creatures inside never had time to understand what happened. One moment they were advancing confidently. The next moment their ship was torn apart by human weapons. Then the second hive ship exploded. Then the third. On the bridge of the lead Velnar ship, Captain Shelvin stared at his monitors in disbelief. They are attacking directly, he said to his crew. They are not maintaining safe distances. They are not focusing on shields. They are just attacking. His tactical officer shook his head. This is not how civilized species fight. No, Shelvin agreed quietly. It is how predators hunt. Lieutenant Jake Morris flew his fighter through the battle, his hands steady on the controls. He had trained for this in simulators, but the real thing was completely different. The Vakroth scout ships were fast and unpredictable. They moved in swarms, trying to overwhelm targets with numbers. But Jake and his squadron were faster. They split up, each fighter taking different angles. Their weapons were smaller than the capital ships, but they were precise. Jake fired at a Vakroth scout ship and watched it spin out of control. His squadron destroyed 6 more in the next minute. Stay in pairs, Jake ordered his pilots. Do not let them separate you. Watch each other's backs. Deep inside the Valiant, Sergeant Mike Torres and his Marines prepared for boarding action. The ship shook as enemy weapons hit the shields. Torres checked his rifle one more time and looked at his platoon. Listen up, he said. Intelligence says these bugs are smart. They can think and plan, but they have never fought Marines before. They have never faced humans in close combat. So we are going to teach them something today. We are going to teach them fear. The Marines cheered. They were ready. The battle continued for 3 hours. The human ships moved in patterns that confused the Vakroth. They would attack, then pull back, then attack from a different angle. They used weapons the Vakroth had never seen before. They coordinated their strikes with perfect timing. Admiral Karen Price watched the battle from her flagship's command center. The display showed her everything: ship positions, damage reports, ammunition levels, casualties. So far they were winning, but the cost was high. 3 human ships had taken heavy damage. Hundreds of crew members were injured. Admiral, her communication officer, called out, "The Vakroth are transmitting something. It is on multiple frequencies. Put it through," Price ordered. The bridge speakers crackled with alien sounds. It was not words exactly. It was more like feelings transmitted as sound. Fear, confusion, anger. The translation computers struggled to make sense of it. Dr. Helen Cross, who was monitoring the battle from the science station, suddenly understood. "Admiral, they are afraid. The Vakroth have never been afraid before. They have always been the hunters. But now they are facing something they do not understand. They are facing other hunters." The Vakroth formation began to collapse. Their hive ships were retreating, moving away from the human fleet. Some of them were damaged and leaking atmosphere. Others were trying to protect the weaker ships. "Do not let them escape," Admiral Price ordered. "Press the attack. We end this here." Captain Bell pushed the Valiant forward. The ship was running hot, its weapon systems working at maximum capacity. Chief Engineer Laura Kim reported that they were operating above safe limits, but Bell did not care. They had to finish this. The Vakroth tried one last desperate move. 20 of their hive ships turned and charged directly at the human fleet, ignoring their own safety. They were trying to break through to cause enough damage that the humans would have to retreat. It did not work. The human ships concentrated their fire on the charging hive ships. Sergeant Torres and his Marines launched from boarding pods, smashing into one of the enemy vessels. They fought their way through corridors filled with Vakroth warriors. The aliens were strong and fast, but the Marines were better trained and better armed. Torres saw a Vakroth warrior charge at him, its claws extended. He fired 3 shots, each one hitting center mass. The creature fell. Another one came from his left. His squad mate shot it down. They moved forward room by room, deck by deck. "These things do not know when to quit," one of his Marines said. "Neither do we," Torres replied. "Keep moving." Lieutenant Jake Morris watched as another Vakroth hive ship exploded. His fighter was low on ammunition and his shields were almost gone, but he kept fighting. Around him, other human fighters were doing the same. They were exhausted and scared, but they did not stop. The battle finally ended when the 41st Vakroth hive ship was destroyed. The remaining enemy vessels jumped away, fleeing into deep space. They were broken and scattered. The swarm that had seemed unstoppable was now running away. The human fleet regrouped. Damage control teams worked to repair the ships. Medical teams treated the wounded. Admiral Price counted the losses. 11 ships with moderate damage. 3 ships that would need months of repairs, but no ships completely destroyed. No ships lost. On the Velnar colony ships, the civilians were safe. They had watched the entire battle, unable to believe what they were seeing. Captain Shelvin opened a communication channel to Captain Bell. "Captain Bell," Shelvin said slowly, "we have witnessed something today that we did not believe was possible. Your species fights with a violence that frightens us. You use tactics that we would never consider. You take risks that seem insane, but you saved us. You came when we called for help and you saved us." Bell looked at the transmission screen. The Velnar captain looked shocked and confused. "Captain Shelvin, you do not need to understand how we fight. You just need to trust that when monsters come for you, we are the bigger monsters that stand in their way." There was silence for a moment. Then Shelvin spoke again. "What are you, humans? What kind of species are you?" Bell thought about the question. He thought about Earth, about the long history of human warfare, about all the conflicts and battles that had shaped his species. He thought about why humans had always been ready to fight. "We are the species that survives," Bell finally said. "We are the ones who learned that the universe is dangerous, and we decided to be more dangerous than anything else out there. We are the ones who prepare for the worst and hope for the best. And right now, we are your friends. Remember that." The communication ended. Bell sat back in his chair and closed his eyes. His crew was celebrating around him, happy to be alive, proud of their victory. But Bell was already thinking about what came next. The Vakroth would be back. They would adapt. They would learn, and humanity would have to be ready. 3 weeks after the victory at Helios Sector, Everything changed. The Vakroth attacked 7 different star systems at the same time, but they were not attacking military targets anymore. They were hitting colonies, supply stations, and civilian populations. Lieutenant Sophie Blake sat in the intelligence center at Fleet Command studying the reports. She was young for her position, only 26, but she was good at seeing patterns. And the pattern she was seeing now worried her greatly. "General Grant," she said, "you need to see this." General Paul Grant walked over to her station. He was a big man with gray hair and tired eyes. He had been working for 72 hours straight, coordinating the defense of multiple systems. His brother Peter, the ambassador, had warned him that the Vakroth were intelligent. "But this was something else. What am I looking at?" Grant asked. "Sir, the Vakroth are not fighting like they did at Helios," Sophie explained. "They are avoiding our main fleets. They are hitting places we cannot defend easily. They are spreading us thin. They learned from the first battle." Grant studied the tactical maps. Sophie was right. The Vakroth were fighting smart now. They were using hit-and-run tactics. They would attack a colony, cause massive damage, then leave before human ships could arrive. By the time help came, the Vakroth were already attacking somewhere else. "They adapted," Grant said quietly. "They saw what we did at Helios and they adapted their tactics." "There is more, sir," Sophie continued. "Our language specialists have been studying Vakroth communications. They have a new name for us. They call us Vekthar. It means something like the ones who bite back or tooth givers. They respect us now, but they also fear us, and fear makes them more dangerous. Colonel Dan Webb was on the planet Melnari Prime when the Vakroth attacked. He had brought 3 battalions of ground troops to protect the aquatic cities, while civilians evacuated. The Melnari were peaceful people who lived in underwater habitats. They had no weapons, no soldiers, no way to defend themselves. Webb stood on the beach and watched the Vakroth dropships descend from orbit. He had fought on Earth, on Mars, on the moons of Jupiter, but he had never seen anything like this. The dropships were organic-looking, like giant insects. When they landed, thousands of Vakroth warriors poured out. "All units, defensive positions," Webb ordered. "Let them come to us. Make them pay for every meter." The Vakroth came in waves. The first wave was scouts, small and fast. They tested the human defenses, looking for weak spots. Webb's troops killed them easily. But the second wave was different. These warriors were bigger, with thicker armor. They had learned from the scouts. "They are probing us," Webb told his officers. "Each attack is a test. They are learning our weapon ranges, our firing patterns, our defensive positions. These things are smart." The third wave came at night. The Vakroth used darkness as cover, attacking from multiple directions. They had learned where the humans were strongest and where they were weakest. Some of Webb's troops were injured. 2 were killed. But the line held. By morning, the Vakroth withdrew. Webb counted 15 separate attacks. Each one was different. Each one tested something new. It was like fighting an enemy that got smarter with every battle. Far from the front lines, Dr. Kevin Ross worked with Chief Engineer Laura Kim to develop new weapons. They were in a research facility on Earth, building and testing as fast as they could. If the Vakroth could adapt, then human weapons had to evolve faster. "The problem is predictability," Kevin explained. "Our weapons are efficient, but the Vakroth are learning to avoid them. We need to create systems that vary their behavior, random firing patterns, unpredictable flight paths. Weapons that change with each use," Laura nodded. She was tired, having worked for weeks without proper rest. But she understood the urgency. "What about AI-guided systems? Weapons that learn and adapt just like the Vakroth do?" "That might work," Kevin said. "But we need to test them fast. Every day we wait, more people die." Admiral Karen Price coordinated the fleet from her command ship, moving forces from one crisis to another. She was winning individual battles but losing the larger war. For every Vakroth hive ship her forces destroyed, 2 more appeared. For every planet they defended, 3 others came under attack. "We cannot be everywhere at once," she told her staff. "We need help. Real help." Commander Lisa Hayes presented the problem to the Galactic Council. She stood in the council chamber, still wearing her military uniform, and spoke plainly. "We need your help," she said, "not your weapons. We know you do not have those, but we need your industrial capacity. We need your resources. We need your logistic support. We can fight, but we cannot fight everywhere simultaneously." High Chancellor Velnara stood up. Commander Hayes, we do not know how to help in war. We are not warriors. You do not need to be warriors, Lisa replied. You just need to be support. The Velnar have shield technology. We can modify it for defensive platforms. The Melnari have medical knowledge that can save our wounded. The Karathi have agricultural systems that can feed our troops. Everyone can contribute something. The council debated for hours. Finally, they agreed. The peaceful species of the galaxy would support the human war effort in whatever ways they could. It would not be military support, but it would be something. Over the next weeks, cooperation increased. Velnar engineers worked with human technicians to build mobile shield generators. Melnari doctors taught human medics new techniques for treating injuries. Karathi farmers sent food to human military bases. Other species contributed in their own ways. It was slow, but it was working. The galaxy was learning to work together. Captain Ryan Bell led a deep space reconnaissance mission into unknown territory. He took the Valiant and 2 other ships far beyond the front lines, searching for the source of the Vakroth reinforcements. What he found shocked him. Fleet Command, this is Captain Bell, he transmitted. I have located a massive structure in the outer rim. It appears to be a breeding complex. I am seeing thousands, maybe tens of thousands of new Vakroth being created every day. This is why they keep coming. This is why their numbers never decrease. We are fighting an enemy that can replace losses faster than we can create them. General Paul Grant received the transmission and called an emergency meeting. He gathered his top officers, scientists, and advisors. Squadron leader Jake Morris attended, having been promoted after his performance at Helios. Sergeant Mike Torres represented the ground forces. Dr. Helen Cross presented her analysis of the breeding complex. The conclusion was clear but terrifying. Humanity could not win by fighting defensive battles. They had to take the war to the enemy. They had to attack the Vakroth homeworld itself. They had to destroy the breeding complexes and kill the queen that controlled the entire swarm. It will be the most dangerous military operation in human history, Grant said. We will need every ship, every soldier, every weapon we have. Many will not come back. The room was quiet. Everyone understood what Grant was saying. This would not be like Helios Sector. This would be an invasion of the enemy's home territory. The casualties would be enormous. When do we leave? Captain Bell asked. Grant looked at him. 2 weeks. We need time to prepare, time to gather our forces, time to say goodbye to our families. Then we should get started, Bell said. The others agreed. The die was cast. Humanity would take the fight to the Vakroth homeworld, whatever the cost. The Armada gathered at the edge of known space. 147 human warships floated in formation, their weapons armed and their crews ready. Behind them came 63 council ships providing medical support, supplies, and logistics. It was the largest fleet ever assembled in galactic history. General Paul Grant stood on the bridge of his flagship and looked at the fleet. He knew that many of these ships would not return. Many of the people serving on them would die. But they all volunteered. They all understood what was at stake. Open a channel to all ships, Grant ordered. When the communication officer nodded, Grant began to speak. His voice was transmitted to every ship in the fleet, to every crew member, to every soldier preparing for battle. We know what we are facing. We know that many of us will not come home. But we also know why we are here. The galaxy called for help and we answered. Now we are going to end this threat forever. Not just for us, not just for Earth, but for everyone. For every peaceful species that just wants to live without fear. Today we fight for all of them. The fleet began moving. The journey to the Vakroth homeworld would take 8 days. During that time, the crews prepared. Squadron leader Jake Morris trained his pilots using the latest intelligence. They studied maps of the planet, learned about its defenses, practiced attack runs in simulators. Dr. Nina Reed, a specialist in hive biology, gave briefings to the command staff. She had studied the Vakroth for months, analyzing their behavior and biology. What she told them was disturbing. The homeworld is not just a planet, Nina explained. It is a living organism. The entire surface is covered in biomechanical structures, buildings made of flesh and metal, defenses that grow and adapt. We are not invading a world. We are invading a creature. Commander Chris Lane listened carefully. He commanded the special operations teams that would insert onto the planet's surface. His mission was simple but deadly. Reach the Queen Chamber deep inside the planet and destroy it. How do we even find this Queen Chamber? Lane asked. Follow the bioenergy readings, Nina said. The Queen produces massive amounts of psychic energy. She coordinates the entire swarm from the planet's core. But to reach her, you will have to go through kilometers of hive structure, and every Vakroth on the planet will try to stop you. Lieutenant Ben Cole checked his demolition equipment one more time. He was part of Lane's team, responsible for placing the fusion charges that would destroy the Queen. Cole was good at his job. He had blown up buildings, bridges, and bunkers on 3 different planets, but he had never tried to destroy something like this. "Do you think we can do it?" asked one of his teammates. "We have to," Cole replied. "If we do not, everyone dies." Captain Mary Stone commanded the stealth transport that would carry Lane's team to the surface. Her ship was designed to avoid detection, using advanced technology borrowed from the Velnar, but she knew that once they entered the planet's atmosphere, stealth would not matter. The Vakroth would know they were coming. "We get one shot at this," Mary told her crew. "We drop the team, then we get out. If we stay too long, we will be destroyed." The fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Vakroth home system. What they saw made even the bravest soldiers feel fear. The planet was dark and pulsing, surrounded by hundreds of hive ships. Defensive platforms orbited the world like moons, and everywhere there were Vakroth vessels, thousands of them, more than any scout mission had detected. "All ships, battle stations," Admiral Karen Price ordered. "Begin the attack run." The fleet charged forward. The Vakroth response was immediate. Hive ships poured from the planet's surface. The space around the homeworld became a storm of weapons fire, explosions, and dying ships. Human vessels fired everything they had: missiles, railguns, plasma cannons, and new weapons that Dr. Kevin Ross had designed. Captain Ryan Bell pushed the Valiant through the defensive lines. His ship shook as enemy weapons hit the shields. Damage reports came in from multiple sections, but Bell did not slow down. "All gun crews, continuous fire," he ordered. "Do not give them time to recover." Squadron leader Jake Morris led his fighters through the chaos. Vakroth scout ships swarmed around him, trying to overwhelm his squadron with numbers. But Jake and his pilots were ready. They fought in pairs, watching each other's backs, destroying enemy ships with precision. "Stay focused," Jake told his pilots. "Do not chase kills. Protect the capital ships." Sergeant Mike Torres and his Marines launched from assault carriers in boarding pods. They smashed into Vakroth hive ships and fought their way inside. The fighting was brutal and close. The Vakroth warriors were defending their homeworld with desperate strength, but the Marines pushed forward, deck by deck, room by room. While the main battle raged, Captain Mary Stone's stealth transport slipped through the chaos. Commander Chris Lane and his team prepared for insertion. They checked their weapons, their equipment, their charges. Everyone knew this was a one-way trip. The chances of extraction were almost zero. "Listen up," Lane told his team. "We have 6 hours. That is how long the fleet can hold orbital space. If we are not done by then, we will be trapped down there. So we move fast, we move smart, and we complete the mission. Understood?" "Yes, sir," the team replied. The stealth pods launched. They fell through the planet's atmosphere, passing through layers of biomechanical defenses. The pods crashed onto the surface and the team emerged into an alien nightmare. The ground was not rock or dirt. It was living tissue. The structures around them pulsed and breathed. The air smelled wrong, like decay and growth happening at the same time. "Move out," Lane ordered. They descended into the hive. Dr. Nina Reed guided them, using her knowledge of hive biology to predict the safest routes. But there were no truly safe routes. They encountered Vakroth warriors almost immediately. Brief violent firefights erupted in the organic corridors. Lane's team fought through them and kept moving deeper. Above, the space battle grew more intense. Admiral Price's flagship took a direct hit, losing main power. Captain Bell moved the Valiant to protect the Admiral's ship while repairs were made. Human ships were taking heavy damage. The Vakroth were fighting harder than ever, defending their home with everything they had. Squadron leader Morris lost more pilots. His squadron, which started with 20 fighters, was down to 12. But they kept fighting. The Council support ships worked frantically to rescue damaged vessels and provide emergency medical care. Deep in the hive, Lane's team reached the Queen Chamber. It was enormous, a cathedral made of flesh and bone, and in the center, surrounded by thousands of Vakroth warriors, was the Queen herself. She was massive and ancient, her mind powerful enough to coordinate billions of creatures across hundreds of light years. The moment they entered, the Queen became aware of them. Vakroth warriors flooded into the chamber from every entrance. There were hundreds of them, then thousands. Cole, start placing charges, Lane ordered. Everyone else, hold them off. The team formed a defensive circle. They fired their weapons in controlled bursts, each shot counting. Lieutenant Ben Cole worked quickly, placing fusion charges at structural weak points that Nina had identified. But the Vakroth kept coming, endless waves of them. We need 3 more minutes, Cole shouted over the weapons fire. 3 minutes felt like forever. Lieutenant Ben Cole placed the last fusion charge and activated the timer. Charges are set, he called out. 5 minutes to detonation. Commander Chris Lane looked around the Queen Chamber. His team was surrounded by thousands of Vakroth warriors. More were coming through every entrance. The exit they had used was now completely blocked. Fall back to the charges, Lane ordered. Defensive circle. Make every shot count. The team moved together, forming a tight group around the fusion charges. They fired continuously, dropping Vakroth warriors as fast as they could. But for every one they killed, 2 more appeared. The team's ammunition was running low. Their armor was damaged. They were bleeding and tired. Lieutenant Cole took a hit to his shoulder but kept fighting. Dr. Nina Reed used her scientific equipment as an improvised weapon, swinging it at any Vakroth that got too close. The other team members fought with everything they had. Above the planet, Admiral Karen Price received Lane's transmission. His voice was calm but filled with acceptance. Admiral, the charges are armed, but we are pinned down. We cannot reach extraction. Detonate the charges in 5 minutes whether we make it out or not. The Queen must die. Price closed her eyes. She had sent soldiers to their deaths before. It was part of command. But it never got easier. She opened her eyes and gave the order. Understood, Commander. 5 minutes. All ships prepare for planetary bombardment to support the detonation sequence. In the Queen Chamber, Commander Lane heard the response. He looked at his team, at these brave men and women who had followed him into hell. Listen up, he said. We knew this might be a one-way trip, but we are going to complete the mission. That is what we do. That is what humans do. The Queen's psychic voice suddenly filled their minds. It was not words exactly, but feelings and images transmitted directly into their thoughts. She showed them images of Earth destroyed, of humanity consumed, of the Vakroth swarm spreading across the entire galaxy. You cannot win, the Queen's voice said. We are eternal. We are inevitable. Lane smiled and fired his weapon at another warrior. You know what? You talk too much. The timer counted down. 4 minutes. 3 minutes. The Vakroth warriors pressed closer. The team's weapons were overheating. Their ammunition was almost gone. 2 minutes. Lieutenant Cole collapsed, his injuries too severe. He looked at Lane and managed to smile. Make it count, sir. We will, Lane promised. 1 minute. Suddenly the ground shook. The ceiling above them began to crack. Extraction shuttles were coming, firing their weapons directly through the hive structure. Captain Mary Stone had brought her stealth transport back, ignoring the danger, refusing to abandon the team. Commander Lane, if you can hear me, we are coming for you. Mary transmitted. Hold on! The shuttle broke through the ceiling, weapons blazing. Vakroth warriors scattered as the transport opened fire. A ramp extended. Go, go, go! Lane shouted. The surviving team members ran for the shuttle. Lane stayed behind, covering their retreat. Dr. Nina Reed grabbed Lieutenant Cole and dragged him toward safety. Other team members helped the wounded. 30 seconds. Lane backed toward the shuttle, still firing. A Vakroth warrior knocked the weapon from his hands. He pulled out his sidearm and shot it. Another one came at him. He used his knife. 15 seconds. Strong hands grabbed Lane and pulled him into the shuttle. We have him go, someone shouted. The shuttle lifted off, blasting through the hive structure. Behind them, the Queen screamed, not with sound but with psychic energy. Every Vakroth in the system felt it. Every human felt it too, a pressure in their minds like nothing they had experienced before. 0 seconds. The fusion charges detonated. The explosion tore through the planet's core, triggering a chain reaction in the hive's biological structure. The Queen died instantly, her psychic scream cutting off mid-thought. The planet began to collapse, its organic structures failing without her coordination. Above, the space battle changed immediately. The Vakroth hive ships stopped their coordinated attacks. Without the Queen's intelligence directing them, they lost cohesion. Some ships continued fighting. Others began retreating. Some just drifted, their crews confused and directionless. All ships pursue and destroy, Admiral Price ordered. Do not let them regroup. End this now. The human fleet, battered and exhausted, pressed the attack. Squadron leader Jake Morris led his remaining fighters in sweeps of the retreating vessels. Captain Ryan Bell's Valiant, operating on backup power and held together by emergency repairs, continued firing until every weapon was depleted. The battle lasted another 18 hours. By the end, the Vakroth swarm was broken. Small groups of hive ships escaped into deep space. But without the Queen's coordination, they were no longer an organized threat. They were just survivors, scattered and directionless. Humanity had won, but the victory came at a terrible price. 31 human warships were completely destroyed. Another 47 were damaged so badly they would take years to repair. 12,000 humans were dead. 20,000 more were wounded. Commander Chris Lane survived, but barely. Lieutenant Ben Cole died from his injuries before the shuttle could reach medical help. 47 other Special Operations soldiers never made it out of the hive. Their names would be remembered. Their sacrifice would not be forgotten. The Galactic Council convened an emergency session. Ambassador Peter Grant stood before them, representing humanity. The council chamber was different now. The delegates looked at humans with new eyes. Not with fear exactly, but with deep respect and gratitude. High Chancellor Velnara spoke first. The humans came when we called. They fought a war we could not fight. They paid a price we could not pay. What do we owe them? The debate went on for hours. Some species wanted to give humans advanced technology. Others offered economic partnerships. The Karathi proposed giving humans a permanent seat on the council. Admiral Karen Price arrived at the station and addressed the council herself. She was tired. She had lost friends and colleagues. She had sent thousands of people to their deaths. She was not in the mood for politics. "We do not want your technology," she said bluntly. "We do not need a seat at your table. We came because you called for help. That is what friends do. They help each other. But surely Earth must want something," Councillor Thexvan insisted. "Your losses were severe. Your people must expect compensation." General Paul Grant, standing beside his brother Peter, provided the answer. "What we want is simple. We want to make sure this never happens again. Not to you. Not to anyone. We want to help you build defenses. We want to train your people. We want to teach you that peace is worth having, but only if you are willing to protect it." Over the following months, human military advisors spread across council space. Colonel Dan Webb established training facilities on 12 worlds. Captain Mary Stone's transport became the first of many, carrying human instructors to alien. Militaries. Commander Lisa Hayes worked with Council engineers to design new ships that combined alien science with human weapons. The designs were revolutionary, creating vessels that could both explore and defend. Captain Ryan Bell took command of a joint human Velnar patrol fleet, hunting down the scattered Vakroth remnants. Squadron leader Jake Morris trained the first generation of alien fighter pilots. Sergeant Mike Torres discovered he enjoyed teaching, helping peaceful species learn to protect themselves. A year after the battle, a memorial was built on Earth. It listed every human who died in the war. But it also listed every alien life saved, every colony protected, every world that survived because humanity answered the call. The inscription read, "They called for help, and we answered." Across the galaxy, species looked at humanity differently now. The most dangerous species in the galaxy was on their side, and when the next threat came, they knew who to call. High Chancellor Velnara sent a personal message to Admiral Price. "We once feared what humanity represented. Endless conflict, eternal warfare, a species that never stopped fighting. Now we understand. You never stopped fighting because you knew someday someone would need you to fight for them." Admiral Price's response was simple. "We are ready whenever you call again." That is what friends do. The human fleet returned to Earth, but parts of it remained scattered across council space. Not as conquerors, not as occupiers, but as partners and protectors. Peace settled across the galaxy. But it was a different kind of peace. It was peace protected by those willing to face danger. Peace maintained by strength. Peace earned through sacrifice. And humanity, the galaxy's most dangerous species, became its greatest defenders.